Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm from Jenny Card Designs. Thanks so much for stopping by to spend some time with me here today. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting, tutorials, and inspiration with all of you. I hope that you enjoy. Today's project is going to feature another Slimline card, and I've got some products here. I've got some Distress Oxide inks, I've got some cardstock and a Slimline card, and I've got this beautiful stamp set from Altenew called Incredible. And I have both the stamp and die set, and I'm going to create a beautiful, elegant card with this stamp set. And I've got a Slimline card and envelope, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So I want to take a look at the stamp set here. In this stamp set comes a inspiration guide, and it's got some cutouts that you can cut apart and use for your cards. And it's got some other inspiration and products that work along nicely with it. So I think that's nice that those little packages come along with your stamp sets from Altenew. So we'll set everything aside for just a moment, and we're going to go over the Slimline card and envelope. I've got a piece of cardstock that measures 7.5 inches by 8 3/4 inches, and I'm going to score that at 3 3/4 to make my Slimline card. There are a few variations for Slimline card sizes, but today my finished Slimline card size will be 3 3/4 by 8 3/4. For my envelope, I'll be using my Gemvelope template reference. I've got a regular piece of cardstock. I'm going to score it at 2 inches and then 6 inches on the 8.5 inch side, and then I'll rotate and score at 1 inch and 10 inches. And then I'm going to follow along all the steps in the reference guide, cutting off those edges, making some angle cuts, creasing the folds, rounding the corners, adding my adhesive, and that'll do. My Gemvelope reference guide allows you to create a Slimline envelope using a standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock, and you can use any cardstock you have in your stash for this. Alright, let's move into the card project. So I've got a scrap piece of white cardstock here, and I'm going to grab all 3 big flowers from this stamp set, and I'm going to get them all loaded up onto my cardstock, making sure that they all fit, and I have a little bit of space between them so that I'll be able to die cut them all in one pass. So when I'm happy with that, I'll pin it down with my magnet and get the stamps picked up with the door of my MISTI. And you just want to double check to make sure that you have no air bubbles in your stamp. And reposition my cardstock into the bottom right hand corner. I'll grab some of my embossing supplies. I'll use my anti-static powder bag, pat that all over my cardstock to make sure that my embossing powder doesn't stick where I don't want it. I've got some embossing powder, a coffee filter, and my Gina K Designs embossing and watermark ink. And I have this little brush here that I use to sweep away any excess anti-static powder bag bits. Once my cardstock is all prepped, I will ink up my stamp nice and good, making sure that I get good even coverage over my stamped image. I'll close the door of the MISTI, and I use a microfiber cloth to help my fingers slide across the door of my MISTI. So I'll press nice and good, and then I'm going to go back and ink up the stamp again, making sure that I get a nice transfer of ink, and I can't see anything at this point, so I'm hoping for the best. I'll take my embossing powder, and I'm using Brutus Monroe Alabaster Fine Detail White Embossing Powder. This is a really nice powder. So I'll sprinkle this over my stamped images, tap off any excess. Then I'm going to clean up my mess. I'll put my embossing powder back in the jar, and then I'll take my heat tool, and I'm going to heat set these flowers until they're all smooth and melted. And I just tilt it in the light to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, moving over to my Distress Oxide inks. I have Dusty Concord and Victorian Velvet. And if you'll notice, my ink foams are adhered to the top of my ink pads. I like to do this because I don't like to get ink inside of my ink storage. So when I put the inky felts on top, it keeps my space clean and I don't drag Oxide ink all over the place. So that's just a little quick tip. Alright, so I've just gone ahead and used my darker color, which is the Dusty Concord, and inked up the center of all of these flowers. And then I'm taking my Victorian Velvet and just softly blending over top, fading it out to a light color. And I really love the way this looks. It really creates a soft, elegant, and classy look. It's a really pretty color combination. So I go back with the Dusty Concord over again to darken the color in the center. And on the larger flower, I felt like it needed to be more widespread. So I went ahead and did that, and I love the way this turned out. So pretty. So I go back and forth a few times, and once I'm happy with the ink blend, I'll take a microfiber cloth and rub over top of my image to make sure that no ink is sitting on top of my embossing powder. I'm going to grab the coordinating dies for this stamp set and tape them down with a little bit of washi tape. These are super easy to line up, and once they're all taped up, I'm going to run them through my Gemini Junior die cutting machine, and they all cut through in one pass. And these are so pretty. I love the way these flowers turned out. I can't say that enough. I'm so in love with it. It's so pretty. Okay, so I'm going to move over to my card base. Now, I felt like the card base was too purple. I mean, I love the color purple, but I felt like we needed to tone this down just a little bit. So I grabbed a piece of white cardstock and I created a matte layer, and I really liked the way that looked better. So I'm just going to test everything out to see if I like the way it looks, and I sure do. Looking good so far. I haven't quite figured out my placement yet, but we're on the right track. So I'm going to pull the stamp set in, and I'm going to take a look and see what sentiment I want to use. I'm going to use the Incredible Human Beings stamp, and I'll get that loaded up onto an acrylic block and just kind of mess around with my flowers, trying to figure out where I want to place everything and where my greeting is going to go. And I grabbed some My Favorite Things boysenberry ink, and I'm just going to ink up that stamp nice and good. Now I had to edit that out because I leaned in very far and there was quite a graphic shot down the top of my shirt, so I deleted that whole thing out. So I'm going to grab some foam squares. I had to delete the part where I even adhered my white panel to my card base. So we're not that kind of show. This is a family show. All right, so I'm using a bunch of foam squares, and I'm going to pop up my flowers and figure out where I want them. And once they're set down, I love the way this looked. Super happy with the results. So I'm going to grab some Pretty Pink Posh gems. I'm not quite sure the name of this one, but I know it's Pretty Pink Posh, but it's just a white sparkly iridescent gem. So I'm going to adhere a bunch of different sizes all over my card panel, sort of scattering them around in little groups, small ones and big ones and medium ones. And then I decide to dot the tittles of the eye on the word incredible. So I put 2 little sparkly gems there, and then that's going to be it. I really like the way this turned out, and I don't think you can ever have too many sparkly gems. Well, maybe you can. But when they're this pretty, I think it's okay. Alright, so that is it for today's card. Here's a close-up look at my beautiful... Here's a look at those sparkly gems in the light. And I really love these Slimline cards. They're really my favorite. And the color purple, I'm so stuck on it. I'm getting married in a couple of weeks, and purple and lavender are my wedding colors. I couldn't choose just one color of purple, so I ended up with a few different shades. So I think it's going to be so lovely and just as pretty as this card. So that's it for today's video. Here is a close-up look at the finished card project. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. So coming up on screen are a couple of videos I think you may enjoy, including the playlist for my template tutorials where you can create all of your own envelopes just like mine. So have yourself a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!